All right, let's talk about gravel. Such a hot sport in the United States. The Europeans are jumping in, and they sure did jump in this past weekend at the Belgian Waffle Ride in Lawrence, Kansas. Kansas isn't just known for unbound gravel, and they sure did show up. Although Remco Evenepoel and his teammate Mateo Carreo did not do the full waffle ride. They actually did the half wafer, I believe it is what they were calling it. I'm gonna say for a second, and I read into it. Not seeing them running in the bigger race, the premier race, if you will. It's their off season. Let the guys, get into gravel, have a great experience. Try out the bikes and see how it goes, and allow some of the other Americans and Canadians that come out to have a chance at winning the big one. And Tiffany Cromwell went out and had an amazing, outstanding performance. On the men's side, Tanner Ward, once again, top step. But, of note, and this is something that has come up in some other gravel races this year, the men and women starting together has been obviously kind of a controversial thing, because there have been women that have said, that have gone on the record to saying, we don't feel that racing is fair because women are using men for racing, or there's team tactics involved. And so Belgian Waffle actually, for this particular race, decided they were going to have two separate start times. And so they did a delayed start time for the women of 10 minutes. And I personally think that was a really smart move. If we're looking at just two categories, just a men's category and women's category, I think this is a really smart move. But, I know, Ellen, that you don't have a lot of experience, or, gravel isn't necessarily like your thing, but how do you feel about that? I mean, coming from a cross background, especially, like, did you race with men often? Where do you feel this puts the sport of gravel going forward?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I have not raced a lot of gravel in my life, but it's kind of unavoidable. It feels like even if you can miss the results of a cross race or a mountain bike race, there's no avoiding gravel discussion at the moment. And for some reason, I don't necessarily agree with the decision to split up the event, and I don't know why. I don't like the idea that people are basically just bringing teammates to help them win. But I think that it also puts a lot of other racers mostly the women, at a disadvantage, because I think that riders of similar ability, whether they're men or women, should be able to work together. And I think that it just kind of puts the women at a big deficit. And obviously, I feel like this whole policy change, or this new protocol, really is just trying to prevent the top women from using male pacers. But I think that it puts the entire women's field at a pretty big disadvantage, because now you're losing kind of a lot of the community that you were able to race against previously. And I'm not a big fan of co-ed races, because I think that that's a big discussion with cross and mountain, is well, let's just have them all race together. But I think in gravel, it does kind of change the feel of the event for the riders that aren't in the lead. And so I don't know if I totally agree with it. And I just don't think that it's the solution to prevent riders from working together. And lastly, it means that, the top women who could have a really good start and could kind of get out of that traffic, early on, a lot of people who have won Unbound have really credited it to a great start. Now that suddenly puts the women at a 10-minute deficit that they have to work through the entire men's field. And I don't think that that's really fair for the women. So I just don't think that it's the right solution, even though I do appreciate that they're trying to find a way to, prevent this sort of unfairness from happening. I just don't know if this is the final stop on that train.
Yeah, you make some really good points, and as myself as an amateur gravel racer, and having gotten into a lot more of the longer distance 100-mile plus races this year, it's nice to be able to line up next to the men and have Colin Strickland in front of you, and guys that are going to go out and set a really great hot pace in the first few miles. But at the same time too, where are the women? And it is hard as a racer to really keep track of who's in front of you, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad idea that we have a mass start, but it's something that I'm always very aware of when I'm racing, is counting how many Betsy Welches I'm behind and Molly Camerons, and just making sure that I kind of know where I am in that group. But it's a discussion that's not going anywhere. Everybody absolutely is entitled to their opinion. The UCI is going to be making a ruling on this. Again, UCI gravel is coming. It's going to be a thing in 2022, and they have not announced all of their gravel policies yet. So going in line with the way the UCI has officially worked, I think it's a pretty safe bet to assume that they are going to be doing separate starts next year for their official events for men and women. So, something to consider, something to think about. And then also, when we look at these top athletes that might be interested in racing these UCI gravel races, are they going to want to race them now? Because they're not going to have that mixed field. So, something to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how it irons out. I don't know if there's a perfect solution, so I'm curious to see what they come up with.